Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions in the human experience. Most people live with the belief that other people are the reason they are angry, that someone's words, actions, or behavior is the direct cause of the agitation boiling inside them. But the truth is deeper and more revealing. No one can make you angry. What happens is that you interpret their actions in a way that allows anger to rise within you. Anger is not about what is done to you, but how you process what is done to you. This is why two people can face the same insult, the same disrespect, or the same betrayal, and yet respond differently. One explodes with rage while the other remains calm and unmoved. The difference is not in the event, but in the perception of the event. When you understand that anger originates from within you and not from outside forces, you begin to take back control of your own emotional life. Anger is the product of expectation meeting disappointment. You expected someone to act in a certain way, and they failed to do so. You wanted them to honor you, to respect you, to speak kindly, to treat you with fairness, but when they fell short, the gap between your expectation and their action produced offense. Out of that offense, anger is born. If you can see this pattern clearly, then you understand that it is not the other person who has power over you, but your own interpretation and your own expectations. The danger of not understanding this truth is that you will spend your entire life trying to change people, trying to manage their actions, trying to correct their behavior so that you can live in peace. But peace does not come from controlling others, because people will always be unpredictable, flawed, and often disappointing. If your peace depends on their perfection, you will never be free. Anger thrives in the soil of unrealistic expectations. When you expect perfection from imperfect people, you are planting seeds for frustration and bitterness. Consider how often anger arises not because someone actually harmed you, but because you thought they should have acted differently. You thought they should have greeted you. You thought they should have thanked you. You thought they should have spoken more respectfully. But when they didn't, you allowed your thoughts about their behavior to ignite fire in your spirit. It wasn't their words, but your interpretation of their words. It wasn't their silence, but your assumption about what their silence meant. When you see this, you begin to realize that anger is not something you are a victim of. It is something you participate in creating. Another key to understanding anger is recognizing that it is tied to the ego. The more centered you are on protecting your pride, the more easily you will be offended. Anger often arises because someone challenged your sense of self-importance. They didn't recognize your value. They didn't treat you with the honor you thought you deserved. They overlooked you, and suddenly your pride was touched. That sting of wounded pride releases anger, and if not governed, it can lead to destructive words and actions. To truly disarm anger, you must learn to separate your identity from the opinions and behavior of others. Who you are is not diminished when someone fails to see it. Your value does not shrink because someone did not acknowledge it. When you anchor your identity in something deeper than the shifting winds of human opinion, you disarm the power of others to provoke you. Anger also exposes where we have allowed people to become too central in our emotional lives. If one person's words can ruin your day, it means you have given them ownership of your peace. If one person's opinion can poison your mood, you have made them the gatekeeper of your joy. To understand the source of anger is to recognize this dangerous transfer of power. Peace is your responsibility, not theirs. Joy is your responsibility, not theirs. When you reclaim that power, you no longer live as a slave to the unpredictable actions of others. The truth about anger is that it does not begin when someone offends you. It begins long before that. It begins in how you see yourself, how you see others, and how you frame the world. If you enter relationships expecting perfection, you will always live frustrated. If you enter conversations needing validation, you will always live wounded. If you enter life thinking that people owe you something, you will always live disappointed. But when you shift your perspective, when you lower unnecessary expectations and accept the reality of human imperfection, you begin to cut off the root of anger before it even grows. To understand the source of anger is to understand that it is not an external force imposed upon you, but an internal decision made by you. You may not be able to control how people treat you, but you always control how you interpret and respond to their treatment. The secret lies not in changing the world, but in changing your mind. And once you see that clearly, you realize that no one truly has the power to make you angry unless you give them that power. The greatest strength a person can ever develop is not the ability to control others, but the ability to control themselves. Self-government is the highest form of power because it is the power that cannot be taken away by circumstances, people, or situations. When you master yourself, you become untouchable in a world that thrives on provocation. People may try to insult you, life may throw its storms at you, but if you have learned to govern your spirit, you remain anchored, steady, and in control of your own destiny. The absence of self-government is the reason many people live as prisoners of their emotions. They are constantly reacting, constantly being pushed and pulled by what others do, and constantly losing their peace because they have never taken responsibility for mastering themselves. Self-government is not something that happens by accident. It is a deliberate practice. To govern yourself means to set boundaries for your emotions, your thoughts, and your responses. It means deciding ahead of time that no person and no circumstance has the right to dictate your inner climate. Imagine a king who cannot rule his own palace, but tries to rule over a kingdom. That kingdom will fall into chaos because the one in charge has no authority over himself. In the same way, if you cannot rule your own spirit, you will never truly be able to rule in life. Success, influence, leadership, and even peace all begin with the ability to govern yourself. One of the greatest tests of self-government is how you handle provocation. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a colleague disrespects you, when a family member speaks harshly to you, do you instantly explode in anger, or do you remain calm and in control? Many people measure strength by how forcefully they respond, but true strength is measured by how calmly they restrain themselves. A calm response does not mean weakness, it means mastery. Anyone can lash out, anyone can shout back, anyone can allow rage to pour out like fire. But it takes a ruler, a disciplined soul, to remain composed under pressure. Self-government turns what could be a moment of destruction into a moment of dignity. To master self-government, you must first understand that emotions are not dictators, but servants. Anger, frustration, and irritation are emotions that serve a purpose, but they should never take the throne of your heart. They should inform you, but never control you. For example, anger may show you that a boundary has been crossed or that an injustice has occurred, but the moment you let anger drive your response, you surrender your government to an outside force. Self-government means taking that signal, processing it, and then choosing a response that aligns with wisdom rather than impulse. Another aspect of mastering yourself is recognizing the danger of reacting rather than responding. A reaction is automatic, driven by emotion, and often regretted later. A response is intentional, measured, and born from reflection. The gap between reaction and response is where self-government is exercised. If you can create space between what happens to you and what you do next, you have already begun to rule yourself. That space may only be a few seconds of silence, a deep breath, or a pause to gather your thoughts, but it is in that pause that power resides. Many people excuse their lack of self-government by blaming their temperament, their culture, or their upbringing. They say, "That's just how I am," or "In my family, we always shout." But to govern yourself means to rise above excuses and take ownership of your inner world. You are not bound to live as a slave to your impulses simply because that is how you were raised. Growth demands discipline, and discipline is the training of self-government. A person who has disciplined their emotions is like a fortified city. Storms may beat against it, but it will not crumble. Self-government also means not allowing other people to manipulate your mood. If you live in such a way that one compliment lifts you and one insult destroys you, then you are not in charge of your life. You have handed the reins of your soul to the shifting hands of people's opinions. To govern yourself means to detach your worth from applause and your peace from criticism. You are steady, balanced, and unmoved because your foundation is not built on the fragile ground of human approval. It is important to remember that self-government is not the suppression of emotions, but the mastery of them. Suppression hides anger, but mastery transforms it. Suppression pretends nothing is wrong, but mastery acknowledges the emotion and then channels it into a constructive path. For example, instead of allowing anger to become an outburst of rage, mastery allows anger to become motivation for growth or a calm confrontation handled with wisdom. The goal is not to deny your humanity, but to direct it. A life without self-government is chaotic because it is constantly being driven by the whims of the moment. One day you are joyful, the next day you are bitter, all because external forces are pulling the strings. But when you develop the ability to govern yourself, you create stability. Your peace is consistent, your joy is not seasonal, and your calm is unshaken. This kind of stability is what sets apart those who thrive from those who merely survive. It is what allows you to walk through life without being tossed by every offense, every insult, or every disappointment. Offense is one of the most subtle yet destructive traps in life. It creeps into the heart quietly, often unnoticed, but once it takes root, it begins to poison thoughts, relationships, and even destiny. Offense is what happens when you allow someone's words or actions to penetrate your soul in such a way that it robs you of your peace and shifts your focus from purpose to pain. The danger of offense is not just the immediate sting you feel. The true danger is that it can anchor you in bitterness, making you relive moments of hurt long after they have passed. Rising above offense is not just a choice for peace, it is a strategy for freedom, because as long as you live, people will offend you intentionally or unintentionally, and if you do not learn how to rise above it, you will spend your life as a prisoner of other people's actions. Offense thrives because of expectations. We expect people to treat us with respect, kindness, and loyalty, and when they fail to do so, offense is born. But the reality of human imperfection is that people will disappoint, they will misunderstand, they will overlook, and sometimes they will deliberately harm. If your ability to live in peace depends on people never offending you, you will never know true peace. Rising above offense requires you to shift your perspective. Instead of expecting perfection, you acknowledge reality. People are flawed, people are fragile, and people are inconsistent. When you adjust your expectations, you disarm the power of offense before it even strikes. One of the ways offense controls people is by consuming their focus. When someone offends you, it becomes easy to replay the moment over and over again in your mind. You rehearse the words they spoke, the way they looked at you, the tone they used, or the way they ignored you. You replay it until it becomes bigger in your mind than it ever was in reality. This mental rehearsal gives the offense power, and before long, your joy is gone, your creativity is blocked, and your purpose is put on hold. Rising above offense requires the discipline of release. You must refuse to give the offense free rent in your mind. Replaying it does not heal you. It chains you to the moment. Release is not weakness, release is wisdom, because it keeps you free to focus on what matters. Another reason offense is so dangerous is because it breeds division. Families are torn apart not because of one great tragedy, but because of small offenses that were never addressed or forgiven. Friendships collapse because someone said something careless, and the other person chose to nurse the wound instead of release it. Teams and organizations fall apart because individuals hold on to offenses that fester into bitterness. When you cannot rise above offense, you allow something small to grow into something destructive. But when you rise above it, you protect unity, you preserve relationships, and you maintain clarity of purpose. Rising above offense does not mean ignoring injustice or pretending that wrong behavior is acceptable. It does not mean tolerating abuse or excusing destructive patterns. What it does mean is that you refuse to let offense dictate your response. You confront when necessary, but you confront from a place of clarity rather than from a place of bitterness. You address issues with wisdom, but you do not allow your heart to become a breeding ground for resentment. Offense wants to turn your heart into a battlefield, but rising above offense means guarding your heart so that it remains a place of peace. To rise above offense, you must also shift where you place your identity. Offense gains its power when you allow someone else's behavior to determine your value. If someone disrespects you and you feel diminished, it means you have rooted your identity in their opinion. But when your identity is anchored in something deeper, when you know your worth is not defined by people's treatment of you, then their offense cannot penetrate your sense of self. They may disrespect you, but you remain secure. They may ignore you, but you remain confident. They may misunderstand you, but you remain grounded. Rising above offense requires you to anchor yourself in a foundation stronger than human opinion. The choice to rise above offense is also the choice to protect your future. Offense keeps you stuck in the past, rehearsing old wounds while life moves forward without you. It is like carrying heavy chains while trying to run a race. You cannot move freely because you are weighed down. Rising above offense is laying down the chains so you can move forward unencumbered. It is not about pretending the offense never happened, but about refusing to let it define your journey. Every moment you spend trapped in offense is a moment stolen from your future. Offense also blinds your perspective. When you are offended, you cannot see clearly. Everything is filtered through the lens of the hurt you carry. Even innocent actions by others can be misinterpreted because your heart is already wounded. This distortion leads to misunderstandings, conflicts, and even more offense. Rising above offense clears your vision. It allows you to see people and situations as they are, not as your pain paints them to be. Clarity comes when offense is removed, because offense clouds judgment and poisons perception. When you rise above offense, you also preserve your influence. People are drawn to those who are calm, steady, and unbothered. No one is inspired by someone who is easily offended, constantly bitter, and always reacting. Your ability to rise above offense sets you apart as someone who can be trusted with responsibility, leadership, and authority. Those who govern themselves well and refuse to be ensnared by offense rise higher in life because they are not distracted by petty battles. Peace is not something that arrives by accident. It is a deliberate decision you make every single day. Many people treat peace as if it is something that depends on external conditions. If life is calm, then they feel peace. But if life is turbulent, peace disappears. This kind of peace is fragile because it is at the mercy of circumstances. Choosing peace as a lifestyle means creating an internal climate that does not shift with the storms outside. It means deciding that no matter what others say, no matter how people behave, and no matter what situations arise, your heart will remain anchored in calm and stability. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of inner strength that refuses to be shaken. When you choose peace as a lifestyle, you step into a higher dimension of living. Instead of being reactive, you become proactive. You no longer wait for the world to settle before you settle. You settle yourself first. That decision changes the way you approach relationships, challenges, and even disappointments. For example, when someone insults you, instead of reacting with anger, you filter their words through your commitment to peace. You recognize that your peace is more valuable than winning an argument, more valuable than proving a point, and more valuable than defending your pride. Peace becomes your priority, and so you respond in a way that preserves it. The decision to live in peace requires discipline. because the world will constantly test it. People will provoke you, circumstances will frustrate you, and unexpected challenges will arise. If you wait until those moments to decide whether to hold on to peace, you will fail. But when peace is your chosen lifestyle, you walk into every situation already decided. No matter what happens, you will not trade your peace for temporary irritation. This is why choosing peace must become a non-negotiable part of your life. You must treat peace as your greatest possession, guarding it against anything that threatens to steal it. Choosing peace as a lifestyle also reshapes your priorities. Many people live in constant turmoil because they are always trying to prove themselves to others, always trying to win arguments, or always are trying to control outcomes. This endless striving robs them of peace because they are fighting battles that were never theirs to fight. Peaceful living requires surrender, surrendering the need to control people, surrendering the need to defend yourself against every accusation, and surrendering the obsession with outcomes you cannot control. This does not mean you become passive or careless. It means you understand that peace is more valuable than the temporary satisfaction of proving yourself right. Another key to choosing peace is learning the art of letting go. Life will always present opportunities to hold grudges, to carry bitterness, or to rehearse past hurts. But carrying those burdens only clutters your soul and drains your energy. Peaceful people practice release. They release offenses, release disappointments, and release the need to get even. They understand that clinging to these things poisons the heart, while releasing them makes room for peace. Letting go is not for the benefit of the other person. It is for your own freedom. You cannot live in peace while holding on to chains of resentment. Choosing peace as a lifestyle also means redefining what strength looks like. In the world's eyes, strength is often measured by how loud you are, how forcefully you can respond, or how quickly you can put someone in their place. But true strength is quiet, steady, and unshaken. It is the ability to remain calm in the middle of chaos. It is the power to respond with gentleness when provoked. It is the courage to remain silent when others expect an outburst. This kind of strength is rooted in peace. When you live in peace, you are no longer a slave to your emotions. Instead, you have mastered them. Living in peace does not mean avoiding challenges or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It means walking through challenges with composure and clarity. When problems arise, peace keeps your mind clear to think wisely instead of being clouded by panic or anger. Peace is what allows you to look at a storm and still make sound decisions. Without peace, small problems look insurmountable because your perception is distorted by fear and frustration. With peace, even great challenges seem manageable because you are grounded and focused. Another dimension of choosing peace is understanding the energy of your environment. Peace is contagious, but so is chaos. When you are peaceful, you bring calm into your relationships, your workplace, and even your home. People feel safe around those who carry peace because they know they will not be judged harshly or attacked without cause. On the other hand, those who are constantly angry, irritated, or defensive create toxic environments where others feel unsettled. By choosing peace, you are not only protecting yourself, but also influencing everyone connected to you. Your decision to live in peace has ripple effects far beyond your own life. Finally, choosing peace as a lifestyle requires you to know the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. Much of human frustration comes from trying to manage things outside of our authority. You cannot control how others think, you cannot control what others say, and you cannot control every circumstance of life. But you can always control how you respond. Peace comes from focusing on what is within your control and releasing what is not. When you live this way, nothing can easily disturb you because you have already decided that your inner world is your responsibility, and you will not hand that responsibility over to anyone else. Would you like me to now write the full script with intro, hook, and these 4 expanded keynotes tied together in the flow of a complete motivational teaching? When you understand the source of anger, you recognize that no one outside of you has the power to control your emotions unless you give them that power. When you master self-government, you realize that true strength is not about controlling others, but about controlling yourself, choosing discipline over impulse, and calm over chaos. When you rise above offense, you refuse to let the words, actions, or failures of others become chains that imprison your heart and distract you from your destiny. And when you choose peace as a lifestyle, you embrace a higher way of living, anchored, steady, and unshaken no matter what storms may come. The call is to live free, to live unbothered, and to guard the inner climate of your soul so carefully that nothing and no one can steal the treasure of your peace.